we all love children. We can't accept that their disease is incurable. And we go on inflicting needless treatment on the child. And a loving family, a parents, if 4 oncologists say, no, I don't think any more chemotherapy will help, will do some doctor shopping and find somebody who is willing to give another try. Thought I would be able to help them. But the parents blocked further conversations. They asked me not to visit the home again. It was rather abrupt. We could only, my colleagues could, without visiting her, talk over the phone, adjust her medication to make her pain-free again. Now, what very often we fail to understand, we meaning all of us, including healthcare professionals, is that physical suffering can be so overwhelming that you do not have mind space for anything else. Yes, the pharmaceutical industry globally is known to be the second most powerful industry, second only to arms industry. And they hold a lot of muscle. Mr. Yusuf Hameed, Dr. Yusuf Hameed of Cipla, he has changed the world. At a time when the patent rights prevented HIV medicines from reaching Africa, he made low-cost HIV medicines and shipped them to and sold them to Africa.
Namaskaram everyone, and welcome back to another episode. We have dear Rajgopal sir here today.
Hello.
Hello sir, and happy Onam.
Happy Onam to you too. Happy Onam to everybody.
Today sir is in a different attire. He's wearing mundu and shirt.
Yes. Our team was celebrating Onam today.
Okay. How did the celebrations go?
Oh, it has only started. I came away for a break.
Thank you for coming, sir.
Oh, my pleasure.
How are you doing?
Very good, very good. Yeah.
So, last time we covered certain parts of your book. So this time I would love to cover the remaining part of the book. Actually, it's been a while, 6 months, and I had been going through some things, and I felt I had lost a little bit of gratitude in myself. But then, when I was revisiting the book to make questions for this podcast, I understood how grateful I should be for the life I have, and just to have a physical body without much pain. And so, thank you for the book. So, I hope the audience also resonates with that.
Vaisakh, I am very glad that you like Walk with the Weary and that you think you have taken in some lessons also from it. Ordinarily, the fact that somebody else is in great suffering doesn't automatically bring you happiness. It requires a certain level of perceptive attitude to do that, and you have it, I can see that.
Thank you, Doctor. Yeah, I think, because I've been struggling with, there are certain phases where I am very on and I go about things, but then there are certain phases I feel, why am I doing anything? What is the purpose? And I need to revisit certain basic aspects of being human being and being alive. And there are very few things that help me to do that. And one of your books is definitely one of that for me, sir. So we'll go into the next chapter, chapter 12. Are there any patients for nerve blocks? That is what the title of the chapter is. So could you revisit the story? It's a very famous story in our culture, the story of Drona and Arjun. So could you revisit that a bit and tell us what aspect you resonate with?
So Vaisakh, I was an anesthetist. And in anesthesia, what we do is to make the people free of pain during surgery, primarily. Everything else is an add-on. So many of the things that we do to make people pain-free could be applicable to many other situations. That is, you have heard about spinal anesthesia. You put in a needle into your spinal column, put in a drug, and then the body is paralyzed below that level for a few hours. The same principle, not with a reversible medicine like this, but something that can almost destroy the nerve. If applied to the nerve, that part of the body can become insensitive, usually for a period of 3 to 9 months. So I saw that by applying the same principle in a different context, though I did not have any special training in that field, I started doing nerve blocks. So what you mentioned about Drona and Arjun is me comparing myself with the focus of Arjun, where when Drona asked him to aim for the bird, he sees the bird's eyes and nothing else. So focused. So I was comparing with myself with that focus. People would come in agony, in pain, and I would be seeing only the nerve. Okay, poke the needle in, take it out. And pat myself on the back. Okay, you are successful. I did that for a 42-year-old college professor who had a cancer here and had agonizing pain all over that side and also into his ear. So I put in that needle here. It has to weave in and out several times before you find the nerve. When you touch the nerve, the person has tingling. That's when you know. In those times, we did not have imaging. It was done blind. So I did this procedure. I put in the alcohol, which destroys the nerves. And the next day when he came, the pain was gone. I was quite happy, congratulating myself. And he asked me, when should I come again? I told him, you don't have to come back unless the pain comes back. If you get the pain, come back. But I think the pain relief may last for an average of 6 months. He went and killed himself that night. Here I was focusing on the nerve. I never bothered to find out what he feels. And when I told him, you don't have to come back, then he understood what no one has talked to him before, that his disease was incurable. If I had understood the questions in him, maybe I could have explained how his cancer was slow growing and how with pain relief he could be functional and still a teacher for quite a time to come. He had small children and maybe they could have had their father again. So this man gave up his life to teach me a lesson that people are not just bodies. People are more than bodies with emotions, with feelings.
So today, does people like that come to you and are you able to?
So that man initiated the lesson and then I had the opportunity to study palliative care. And it was the one field in medicine that talked about people and not just about bodies and tumors. So now I would start by seeing them, seeing the person. Like we have talked this is the second time that we had a lengthy talk. I know your face. And if you are feeling very gloomy or sad, your face would tell me that. And maybe even before this recording, I would have sat with you, Vaisakh. You are not quite yourself today. What's wrong? And if you give the opportunity, many people would talk about it. They may not talk about it within their family. He wouldn't talk about it with his wife because he doesn't want her to feel sad. You hold yourself in. But if I open the door, people share. So I understand what they feel now. I try to. You cannot always win. So I try to see the human being, see beyond the body, get to know their feelings, clear their doubts. And if the person asks, I might as well go, what's the point? Then I'm not going to try to answer the question. I'm going to help him to find the answer. Maybe if you ask another question, look, who all do you have at home? He would tell me about his wife and 2 children and what are they doing. And maybe in that conversation, he would realize that he has a purpose. And also that life doesn't have to be with pain. That I could walk with him on that man's journey, trying to help him as much as possible. So he wasn't being abandoned. Those are things that could be done.
The next chapter is letting him go gently into the night. May I ask, where did you get the title of this chapter?
I'm sorry. Just by the title, I am unable to connect with the story.
Okay.
So what's that story
The
about?
story is your first contact with children in pain, and Dr. Salim had asked you to do a procedure on a kid with leukemia.
Okay. Oh, the title. Isn't there a song? Go gently into the night. So, and that's just by adding that word gently, the poet has given such beauty to that ordinary phrase. I think that is stolen from there shamelessly.
It is in your book that I first came across the term hospice. I'm thinking I'm pronouncing it right. So could you define what is a hospice and what is the purpose? What is the difference between a hospital and a hospice?
Something halfway between a hospital and a home, where again the purpose is not to treat a disease but to give comfort. Generally, the term hospice is used for places where those people with incurable illnesses are kept. Now, they were there for a long time, but when you talk about hospice today, modern times, hospices are places where palliative care is given, generally for people who are unlikely to come back to reasonable quality of life. Of course, in USA, where the healthcare industry seems to rule, insurance companies seem to rule, that's applied for people only with terminal illness, like less than 6 months to live. But that is American. So here you call a hospice, but it's for somebody with, to me, it's somebody with serious health-related suffering, where they are given a chance to live as well as possible.
Could you talk about what is a morphine trial and how? Because I've never read about it anywhere, and you describe it as a very beautiful process. Or
yeah, it is a thing of beauty. You see, remember that in our country, even now, less than 4% of our population in India has access to pain relief. So unlike in the West, where you have pain, you get somebody treating your pain. Your doctor will treat it. Not here. It's very different. So people come with agonizing pain very often. People come on all fours like this, or screaming. And I remember one man banging his head against the wall because he couldn't tolerate the pain. So when that kind of thing happens, prescribing a medicine and letting them go seems almost inhumane. That's an emergency. If there's a car crash, people are taken as emergency. This is what we would call pain emergency. So what we started doing was the injectable morphine in those days. Now there are other medicines of the same class which act faster. We would give injectable morphine in tiny doses, 1.5 milligram, every 10 minutes, and see how the person responds. So very often, some pains will not respond to morphine. That's a minority. In the majority of cases, so you put in some, maybe 7.5 milligram or 10 milligram or 12 milligram, and then a complete transformation occurs for the person. The person who was rolling around sits up, and maybe they'll ask for a cup of tea, which they wouldn't have had in the last 2 months. So it is management of a pain emergency by titrating the dose of morphine in small aliquots against pain relief. So why is it not commonly done? Maybe because it is easy to laugh at pain and ignore it so long as it's somebody else's pain. Only when you feel it, you know what it can do. Moreover, you may associate agonizing pain to the toothache you have had. But sometimes pain can be beyond your imagination. So when the pain is agonizing, it needs emergency treatment. And when as awareness about pain relief increases, I hope things will get better. And I hope there will come a day when this morphine trial becomes a thing of the past or a rare phenomenon, because we won't allow the pain to rise to that level. If the pain were treated on time, maybe solutions would have come so that this crisis situation doesn't happen.
So is it still in the present day morphine trial is not done, or?
It is more often called morphine titration.
Okay.
It's also called morphine trial.
It's done nowadays, or?
It is done nowadays. In Kerala at least, that sort of pain emergency is becoming less. It still happens. Becoming less because early treatment happens more often. But outside of Kerala, things are not good at all. And in most parts of India, pain relief will be confined to a few institutions here and there, scattered far between.
Could you talk about your first contact with children, doctor? Because it's in your book. I couldn't even imagine that children needed palliative care. So,
my first contact with children, for pain relief would be the surgical patients. In Trivandrum Medical College, I was in charge of a children's operation theatre for a few years. But in the context of palliative care, children do have painful conditions. Children do have cancer. And here, what do you think, Vaisakh? If a child gets that kind of pain, is the child likely to get better attention than the adult?
Yes.
Better treatment?
Yes, should be.
We all love children.
Yes.
Should be.
Yes.
It's very much the other ways.
Okay.
That's possibly because, for one thing, we all love children. We can't accept that their disease is incurable. And we go on inflicting needless treatment on the child. And a loving family, a parents, if 4 oncologists say, no, I don't think any more chemotherapy will help, will do some doctor shopping and find somebody who is willing to give another try. So, because they cannot accept that the condition is incurable, they seek needless treatment. In the Regional Cancer Center in Hyderabad, an oncologist, Dr. Sudha, did a study and published it. She found that approximately 50% of the children who died of cancer had received chemotherapy in the last week of their lives. See the cruelty. So we love children, so we are very cruel to them. And parents may accept that morphine for themselves. But when it comes to the child, they are scared. Oh my God, what will it do to him? No, my child is a fighter, doctor. No, I don't want to take any risk. And even if you explain how safe it is, there may be some other doctors who will say, no, that's a dangerous medicine. So, unfortunately, while I said less than 4% of the needy Indians have access to pain relief, less than 1% of the children who need it get pain relief. Cruel.
Is it because of the parents' insistence and also because...
Not only parents, it's also the medical community. Often yielding to the parents' wish and unable to convey to the parent that your child has an incurable disease. This was not taught to us in medical education. We were not taught how to convey bad news. That has got into the medical curriculum only now. It will be another generation before it gets taught. So, if I had not had palliative care training and there was this family with a child, I wouldn't know how to convey the bad news to them. You can't just say that your child is dying. It's easier for a doctor to say, we'll try, let us hope for the best, etc., because of compassion, but misguided compassion which causes an infliction of more suffering for the child. Very sad.
But will it be possible for the parents to accept? Because like you said, they would go for other doctors, third opinion, and try to... So is it the parent?
If we are able to sit down like this and have a conversation, not only me telling them, but listening to them, they will cry, they will say how precious the child is to them. And if I listen to them first, but then help them with the truth, not like a bombshell in between, like this. But have you considered the possibility that the disease may not get cured? Even that may sound a cruel question to them. And gradually, we teach it in our courses, how to communicate bad news. Now, if we do it properly, a good number of parents will be able to accept it. I do agree that some people will have that kind of love. I'll call it selfish love, where you're thinking more about yourself. I can't give up my child, rather than think how much he is suffering. And sometimes children get very angry. Stop talking to the parents. And that is a very sad sight to see in the last months when they should be hugging each other and crying together. There is all this anger and negativity.
I want to skip certain questions and I want to go into the children's section only, because that is one part of the book that really, something connected. Because I have a nephew, he's a very small, 4 or 5 years old. His name is Arush. I call him Undappan and all. So whenever I have a certain sadness within me, I do my yoga practices for 3-4 hours continuously. So recently when he's there, I want to play with him. But I know if I am in a sad state, why would I be able to be with him? So I thought I'll do my practices and then go and play with him. So he's always waiting for me to come and play. So when I went near him, he asked me, Vaisakh, why are you doing yoga for 4 to 5 hours? And somehow I never feel like lying to kids. I play with them like a kid, but when they talk to me, I talk to them very seriously. So I told, I have a certain sadness within me. And when I do yoga, it seems to, go away. So is that the right thing? Do we need to be honest with kids? And how do we need to see them, doctor? Or should we keep them protected by just saying something like that.
First, Vaisakh, I am glad yoga helps you. Because to me, you appear to be somebody who feels deeply. And people who feel deeply also suffer a lot. I'm glad yoga helps. But I would recommend honesty with children. They deserve it. So, but as I said earlier, the truth is not to be conveyed like a bombshell. You must understand how they feel and answer their questions as honestly as possible. Vaisakh, if a child asks you, what is it like to die? You haven't died,
Yes.
so you don't know. But you don't need that answer. The right response is, hey, why did you ask that question? Tell me, what brought that thought into you? You go behind the question. The question behind the question. Find out what made the person ask that question. Because when you have dealt with that, maybe this question may not arise yet. But suppose, that's an interesting question. Suppose a child insists, no, I want to know. Because I'm just curious, what is it like to die? And it may not be a child, Vaisakh. It can be an adult who is asking the question. Maybe you have the question within you too,
Yes.
right at the moment. I would say, mind you, I'm not going to give that answer straight away. After dealing with the reason behind the question, if there is the insistence, I would say, if all the unfinished business has been done, if the person is physically comfortable, if the person feels loved and cared for, then death can be a good death, where the person gradually slips into drowsiness and then to sleep and passes away. But if there is unfinished business, if they are sad about how things are, that is, if they have not been in acceptance, or if they are physically uncomfortable, then death can be a little more traumatic for the person and for the others to see. So what do we need to do? One, we need to accept death as the inevitable consequence of life. And if there is unfinished business, we need to do it. That includes, maybe for an adult, it includes making a will. And now, today, because the medical system can be very aggressive with your intensive care unit, it also needs preparation of what's called a living will or advanced medical directive. And that planning for end of life is necessary for children also if they are ill. Of course, it's not only the child who takes the decision, it's the family, parents. But they need to be able to think about it. And my colleagues and I need to help them to think about it and plan for it. Unfinished business not be material things. It can be, I quarreled with my brother 4 years back over a bit of property. We haven't talked to each other. And you or I then making a phone call to that brother, getting them together, can also bring a lot of peace of mind. Our own patient, whose story also I think I have written in the book, who said, I want to go back to my primary school and see it once more. Because he later said that was the best time of my life. I haven't known happiness as an adult. And This was a man who couldn't accept death in the beginning, but eventually when he came to accept death, he asked for this. Their sons wouldn't have done it if we had not persuaded them. We said this is very important for him. So they got a taxi and took him on a Sunday when the school would be empty. But you know, the olden schools where they have no walls, no locking, open with only a half wall. So he walked around, and on his way back he told his son, I am at peace now. So people feel connected to some things. Now, why did he want to go back to the school? Let me ask you a question, Vaisakh. What connects you to this world? What do you feel most attached to? What keeps you in this world? What prevents you from saying, oh, what a mess life is. Let me go and die.
Actually, before the shoot, when you asked me the question, I actually tensed up. Because being disconnected is the major feeling that I've always felt through my life, doctor. That this feeling, right, why am I here? I should leave. That has been always a constant thing for me. It's only recently that I've started cherishing connections. Being with my friends, just enjoying their company, not expecting anything of them. Earlier I would expect, they need to do something for me, or I'm not able to do anything. Just cherishing my parents' love, my mom cooking me food, being with my nephew. So these, just doing my daily yoga practices, volunteering. So now when I get that connect, I'm scared that I lose that connect again. Yeah, so these are the things that...
I would say thank you for your tears, because you are giving me and the viewers entry to your innermost feelings. That's a gift, getting to know a human being like you. What I heard was, you more than anything else, you are doing these videos, you are doing many things. I saw a video of you dancing with friends the other day. But what connects you most is your family and friends, the relationships. The relationships within this world is what connects you most. Now, if I am to help you, I need to understand this. I need to understand what you really are. Thank you for sharing. Now, not everybody would give your answer. The one common answer, many people do say family, but another common answer is God, my faith. Some people say specifically my religion. So those people can have a rather comfortable time, give everything to God. Okay, you handle it. And that's a great strength, I know. But you cannot order an ounce of faith and consume it, can you? It's either in it you or it's not there. So, and I think it's a huge mistake to force faith down somebody's throat when he is or she is weakened. Cannot work. And rather surprisingly, to a lot of people it's work. That's, I would say, compared to the other, it may be a minority. I need to do this. And a friend of mine who died many years back, a surgeon, said, no, if I cannot operate, I don't want to live. There is nothing else for me. Even that. And some people have obligations that connect them. See, I cannot die now. I have to do this. I cannot die till my daughter gets married. I cannot die till my children get educated. You cannot always help them to achieve it, and sometimes you will have to help them to accept that that connection may get disconnected. So, that man who went to the primary school on a Sunday, at the evening of his life, when he had only weeks to live, did that because that was what connected him a lot to this world. He said, the only happy time of my life were my school days. And he wanted to walk around the place where they would play. And that kind of thing was important to him. And what was happening there was he reconnected, and then he could close. He got closure. Maybe he said bye and was ready for the next chapter. So when these connections are broken, our first attempt is to rebuild those connections. A bridge is broken with the brother, help to repair the bridge. There was one lady who told me, even if you have to put me in an ICU and put me on a ventilator, do that. My son will come on the 24th. He should see me alive. And we respect that whenever possible. If we cannot help them to achieve it, then we try to get them into a state of acceptance rather than anger or intense grief. And that would be the next step. So the connections are important. Meaning of life is important. Those would be the spiritual aspects of care, not necessarily religion.
Doctor, talking about faith, there was one kid, Abdul, who came to you and he had a certain query that bothered him and no one is answering. So could you talk about that and how you resolved that?
So the majority of us are religious, and we have our own religious beliefs which vary from religion to religion, and we bring children up believing in that. Now for adults, there may be questions inside. Is this really true? You may question your faith, but not children. Their faith is more absolute at that age. And they may have, there was one child who suspected that he was dying because in that ward, children's cancer ward, they would see other children dying, one going every day. And we think these children are fools and we don't talk about it. So they make assumptions. So this child's worry was that when he dies, God will punish him. And we all paint those beautiful pictures of hell, where you burn and steam and rot for the end of time. So he had stolen his sister's pen and hidden it just because he was angry with her. He would pull her hair, annoy her. He knew all that was wrong. So how would God punish him? Would he go into hell and get boiled and burned? So these are silly questions to an adult mind. For the child, it's very real. Imagine that child having to live with that. In that case, the child's religion itself came to help. Because according to that faith, if children do mischiefs, children don't get punished. I don't remember the age bar, 14, 15, something like that. Till then, if you do something wrong, if it's severe, great wrong, then the parents get punished, not the child. So that kind of questions may arise. There was another child. It was not a spiritual issue or anything, very common sense thing. He knew that he would be buried when dead. And will I feel breathless? Won't I suffocate? That was his fear. When you are courageous enough to face the issue and ask them, hey Abdul, I hear you have some questions within you. Ask me. And then they would ask the question. Whereas, very often, the average parent may say, the child brings that word death, why do you talk about these inauspicious things? Don't ever talk like this again. And the child lives with the fear and so many questions inside them, unable to vocalize them.
So whenever a kid asks such questions, we have to first ask why this question came.
Exactly. The question behind the question. Hey Abdul, why did you ask that question? And he would say, I know I have ALL, acute lymphatic leukemia. Children know all that because within their own circles they talk. The parents think that child doesn't know. But these children talk between them. And I know that Rahul with ALL died the other day. So I think I'll also die. And even if he has a curable illness, he is living with the belief that he is going to die. And unless you open the door and invite those questions and are ready to give honest answers, the fears will be there. Unfortunately, in the case of a child, of course, we cannot do it without the parents' consent. And very often, parents would block conversations out of concern and love for the child. In that case, we have to work with the parents first. Try to get them to be ready for open conversations.
Regarding parents and kids dynamic, I think in the next chapter you talk about a kid called Robin and her resentment towards her parents. And so how could you talk about that? Because this feeling resentment is something that is, how do we tackle that, and was Robin able to tackle that, or what happened to Robin?
In Robin's case, Robin was, if I remember correctly, around 15 years. She bitterly resented being put into a boarding school because the parents wanted to go abroad for a good job. From the parents' point of view, they were going abroad to make money so that Robin has a better life. When we concentrate only on material things like money, we sometimes forget very important things. Robin hated the school. She hated being abandoned and only her sister being taken with her. So, even when the parents come for a holiday and during the vacation time and take her with them, she wouldn't be friends with them or with her sister. Her sister also was included in her line of enemies. And then she got a cancer, leukemia. And all through the process, she was very angry with the parents, wouldn't talk to the dad. With the mother, she was closer, so she would be very angry, express anger with the mother, throw things at her. And that was a horrible situation. Now, she would open up to me. She needed to open up to somebody. And she told me about how she felt abandoned. And she said, I got the cancer only because they did this to me. She made that judgment. I thought I would be able to help them. but the parents blocked further conversations. They asked me not to visit the home again. It was rather abrupt. We could only, my colleagues could, without visiting her, talk over the phone, adjust her medication to make her pain-free again, because earlier she was in agonizing pain. So we continued without seeing her later to keep her reasonably comfortable at home till she eventually died at home.
Why is that? Some families do not like to open up about their things, or even when their loved one is suffering.
The most important thing is they are being protective. They don't want the child to be subjected to this cruel doctor who was prepared to talk even about cancer to the child. That could be much of it. It was their love. I believe that was misguided love. It was also they resented the fact that the child was disclosing family secrets to me. I am just making an assumption. That's not knowledge. But primarily, I think it's misguided love. The protective instinct that a parent has for a child.
In the next chapter's title is Hope Lost, Hope Regained. In it, you talk about an 11-year-old girl named Tasleena and how joyful she was. And I think she inaugurated Palliative India, if I'm not...
Not Palliative India. That was our new building for pain and palliative care clinic in Calicut Medical College. So in most of my book, I have used fictitious names to protect identity. But Tasleena's story, I have given her real name with the permission of her parents. And she was that small girl with a cancer in her bone. So the doctors wanted to amputate the leg and she refused. And the parents agreed. And I particularly have, in a way, quite a lot of respect for that parents who decided that her wish is to be respected. But at some point of time, the thing got so huge that she could not even move out of bed. We could treat her pain, but we cannot make that tumor smaller. So eventually she agreed for an amputation and it was done. She was having hopes of walking on an artificial limb. See, we knew that, we were clear that she needed the amputation because otherwise she couldn't even move from side to side on the bed. So I told her about Mayuri. Do you know Mayuri? The story is Sudha Chandran, the actress, how she had an amputation and then on artificial legs did dance again and became a heroine in movies. So she watched the movie and agreed to surgery. So we often talk about having the care recipient. I don't very much like the name patient, but we don't have quite a short, another good term. We often try to practice that they should be at the center of care. Even today, when our Onam celebrations were started, it was a person who is receiving care who lighted the lamp first. So when we opened a new building in Calicut Medical College campus, though the chief of cancer and palliative care at WHO was present and many other dignitaries, it was Tasleena who cut the ribbon and inaugurated the building. So what was special about her? It was her joy of life on her face. And I think all of us could learn a lesson in resilience from her. Okay, she was on crutches. She was hopeful of artificial limbs, but that would be possible only after months when the wound has healed well. She didn't live that long. But she had to walk for about 300 meters or something to get to the road. And she would do the shopping for the home. And for every trip that she undertook, she charged her mother one ice cream. So, finding enjoyment in little things, even at that stage, when she knew her cancer would not be cured. These are sometimes things that children can teach us. So Tasleena even today is a very special memory.
I still remember when I was a kid, I used to watch a serial with my mom in which Sudha Chandran was acting. She used to portray a little bit of negative role in it. And one day I was taken aback when my mom said, "Mom or Dad, someone said to me, she doesn't have one leg and it's a amputated leg." I was very intrigued because she was just walking like anyone normal. Then I got the privilege to watch a live performance when she came for a stage show in Qatar. Yes. I wish I had gone up to her and talked to her at that time, but I was a small kid at that time, so I didn't do that. So that is the only thing. But yeah, I saw her dancing.
Oh my God. You can't imagine somebody dancing on an artificial limb after an amputation above the knee. Phenomenal.
In the next chapter, you talk about a kid called Nadira. Is that the kid who used to put a stethoscope on your head? Could you share that? I had a smile on my face.
So if I remember correctly, she was only 3.5. And she had a cancer in her kidney. So they gave chemotherapy. And she would scream her head off. Because in Indian hospitals, even today, in the majority of them, it's still done in a barbaric way. That is, you need to poke the child for veins. Unless there is a catheter in the neck, which would be such a problem itself. And so she would be plucked from her mom and held tight by hospital attendants while the procedure, whether it's a puncturing a vein or doing a spinal puncture, whatever was done. So the screaming became so bad, the child's fright was so palpable that eventually the parents and the doctors decided enough is enough, no more chemotherapy. But she had pain. So that's how she came to us. We would treat her for the pain. And she became my friend because she loved the toy that I had around my neck, the stethoscope. So she would play doctor and I would be the patient. She would examine me. And interestingly, just like ordinary doctors do, you don't talk to the patient, you talk to the family. That's a very irritating situation for the patient. But she copied that. She would put the stethoscope and then turn to whoever was standing there as if they were family and giving explanations. So she put the stethoscope on my head and said, all your problem is in your head. And my colleagues absolutely loved that diagnosis. Spot on, they said. So that was another lesson in resilience. And unfortunately, her pain sometimes was difficult to control. If you have a pain around the clock, it's easier to treat it. This pain that comes at times is harder to treat. So finally, we got to control it up to a point. But she would be playing with me, and all of a sudden, she will double up and scream in agony. But her own way of adaptation was, the moment that paroxysm of pain was over, she would pretend as if nothing happened and pick up the stethoscope and start the game again. So that was Nadira.
The next chapter, doctor, you talk about pain, which most doctors, nursing professionals fail to understand. And you have taken a certain example of one Mr. Shambhu. So using his example, could you?
So I was working in a major hospital, and this man, I was told that he was a very cheerful kind of person, always with friends and laughing and being the life and soul of the party. He had a nasty accident, road accident. His whole face was crushed, face and neck were crushed. That, of course, gave him an agonizing pain. And he was brought into the hospital. Initially, emergency treatment was given. He couldn't breathe properly. So a tube was put in, and then they slit open the neck and put in a breathing tube, what's called a tracheostomy. So that was what he was breathing for. So he couldn't talk anymore. And anyway, he wouldn't talk. This was one mass of swelling. So then he needed a series of surgical procedures to reconstruct the broken bones, plastic surgery on the skin. And he was a conscious person. Doctors cannot touch your body without your permission for anything invasive. So family's consent is not enough. If the person is in full possession of the faculties, and they tried to get him to sign a consent form, he refused. He would fight and try to take the tubes out and everything. So, because his one relative was a palliative care doctor, we got called in, and the doctors agreed, the treating doctors agreed, and we gave him the same old morphine trial. Tried small doses of morphine into him, and after some time, it was like a transformation. He became a human being again, a rational human being again. He couldn't smile, he couldn't show any expression because of all this. But when things were explained to him, what happened, this was what happened. This is the state of your bones and face. You need a surgery. It will be done under anesthesia, but we need your consent. No problem. Sign the consent. Now, what very often we fail to understand, we meaning all of us, including healthcare professionals, is that physical suffering can be so overwhelming that you do not have mind space for anything else. Imagine somebody unable to breathe properly, breathing like that, and they can't think. How can you talk to them about anything else, including a will or a consent for surgery? You can't. And the same thing holds true for pain. Pain can be so overwhelming that you can't think rationally. You have to get over it to get to the real person. Because till then the person is not there. Shambhu was not there. What was lying in the bed was a body of pain. Without realizing that, sometimes people try to go and talk to them. No, don't think about the pain. Concentrate on something else. And they can't. It's not humanly possible.
Next, doctor, we have talked about the people receiving care. What about the doctors and nurses who are in palliative care? I think there is a huge scope for burnout, and when you're listening to people's pain, and so what are the things that happen? Do people live? Are they able to continue? Or
so we have some 120 staff members and a large number of volunteers working with us. So, unlike the conventional medical system, which looks only at the disease and does not deal with the suffering. You turn away from suffering, which is what I did till the age of about 40, when I dared to talk to people, dared to listen to people. It was escapism. So when we choose to face the suffering, we have to take in some of the suffering. And we see that many of the experiences are things that I would have considered almost unbelievable. I think about it, oh my God, I couldn't have possibly gone through that. So when you take in all that, you also suffer a little bit. So is that a job that you can do? I would say yes, for the vast majority of us. It's a very occasional, rare person who comes into palliative care and says, I cannot take in this, and leaves. That is very unusual. As a matter of fact, I genuinely believe we come into it and we get more enjoyment out of our profession than many other healthcare professionals who may look only at an organ or a disease. Because these people reveal themselves to us as human beings and a wealth of experience. And much of what they disclose to us may not be known to anybody else in the world. It's a privilege. We learn from them. They become a sort of extended family. And we learn life lessons from them. So it is not as if the work is so difficult that everybody leaves. On the other hand, I truly believe, I don't have data. I wish somebody would do a scientific study and I find out. I would say enjoyment of practicing the healthcare profession would be more among palliative care people and volunteers than among other professionals.
And what role does family and community have in this too?
So if somebody is ill, if you can quantify the care being given, who gives the most care? Is it the doctor? The doctor does a bit, diagnosis, prescribing the treatment. For the majority, okay, if you are in hospital, the nurses do a lot. But apart from that time in the hospital, it's the family who does most of the care. Like, this is not a study done by healthcare professionals, but it's by an anthropologist whose name I have forgotten. And they found that about 75% of the care to the patient with a long-term illness is given by the family, and a small part by the community around them. Only the remaining is done by healthcare professionals. See, when the nurses may give the care to unconscious patient, turning every 2 hours, doing all the process, then it's discharged from the hospital on one day. Some explanations may be given. About 73 facts, all one after the other. Who will remember? And thereafter, the family member is the caregiver. They have to do everything. That is not easy. Now, nowadays, the family is alone. 2 generations back in my time, it was an extended family. If there was one person sick in the room, there would be 7 people caring for them. Even if the next of kin is a particular type and doesn't bother too much, no problem, somebody else will be there. But things have changed. Nuclear families, all the caregiving, that 75% of the work rests on one person now. That's very tough. So the community, the extended family and the neighbors, they all used to have a hand in the caregiving process. Now it's on one person. That's an unbelievable burden. Now, that person doesn't even have the luxury of burning out. There's no choice. He or she has to go on doing it even if the person is doing it mechanically. If all the empathy and compassion is drained out, they have to keep on doing it. It is in this context that a palliative care system in Kerala has encouraged participation of the community. So, what can the community do? A lot. Like, I remember Mr. Francis, we call him Francis sir. He's a volunteer in Murukumbura. He has formed a palliative care unit there. And I remember an elderly woman who had had a hip fracture, had a surgery to fix it. But people like that, when they go home, become permanently disabled because they have to get up and start walking immediately, which means pain relief has to be there, physiotherapy has to be there. Because if they remain in bed for 3 more weeks, at that age, my age, the muscles will get wasted. We cannot walk anymore. So I remember that Mr. Francis, because this woman would have nobody at home except when the daughter and son-in-law and children come back after work and school, she was all alone. So he drafted the support of the neighbor, a school-going girl who would return home at 3:30, get something to eat, high school, and she would help the woman up and make her walk every day. And I would say that one thing saved that woman, made her walk again. So there's a lot of contribution that the community can do, like being a link between the hospital and the person, as a support for the person and the family, sometimes raising funds. I still remember an elderly woman, this was somewhere near Bharatannur. So the volunteers and we had gone visiting her. Her husband had died a few months back of cancer. No, she had had a stroke and was able to walk only with support. And she was sitting there. What do I have to complain about? I have no problems. Sharada sends me food every morning. I have it for breakfast and lunch. In the evening, I cook some kanji. And if I need, and Mohan in that house, every day when he comes back from work, first comes here and asks whether I need anything, only then he goes home. Now, that I thought was amazing. And this community spirit is still there in our villages. We are killing it, but it's still there. Imagine something like that happening in your multi-storied apartment complex where you don't know who the neighbor is, leave alone somebody coming and helping. Happens rarely. But one residents association could change the situation. One compassionate human being could be the catalyst. And in Palliative India and in the palliative care scene in Kerala in general, that participation of the community is what makes a huge, significant change. But it's not as if nobody knew this. This was important. In 1978, a global declaration by WHO called Alma Ata Declaration said the community has to be part of healthcare process. Healthcare cannot be complete without the community. After 40 years, they met again at Astana Declaration, said the same thing, said went one step further, make the community not only partner but give some control over healthcare to the community. Vaisakh, for that woman in that place, for healthcare professionals are not enough. She needs water supply. She needs sanitation. She needs transport, food, agriculture, Everything has to come together to keep her reasonably well. And without participation of the community, that's not possible.
A lot of my time goes for volunteering, doctor. And I know in palliative care also, you talk about volunteers. And I think it's very essential to talk about the first volunteer.
But wait a minute, Vaisakh.
Yes.
Can I ask you a
Yes,
question?
please, doctor.
Why do you volunteer?
Why do I volunteer? I really did not understand what volunteering is, but I remember myself once in Qatar, there was this, like I said, I always feel a lot of sadness within me. There was once this film festival going on there for kids. Until that time, I thought I have to study, I have to get a job, then only I'll get happiness. That was my general idea. Then I have to marry, then happiness will come. But I very distinctly remember when I went for this event, I was just taking the kids here and there, taking them to the screenings. I was not being paid anything. But I was feeling so much happiness because I was able to offer myself there to do something without thinking what I'll get back in return. And that stayed with me. It is later that, but I never found something that I could involve myself in, or am I good enough? It is later that I did this yoga program, and I could see evolution. I always had this thing within me to help people. I wanted to help people, but
Why?
I don't know.
You don't get anything.
You know,
Crazy man.
Yeah.
Why do you help people?
Yeah.
Because that gives you satisfaction. Could it be that because that gives you meaning to your life? Your life becomes a little more worth living. And Vaisakh is not the only person. Lot of people out there who want to do it, who would happily do it and get some meaning and satisfaction. It is just that we usually keep the doors of the healthcare system closed. It's good to have our own power, because when they come in, they ask questions. But why? These people have been standing in line for so long. Why do you get the staff members to bring people through the other door? Aha, that's not comfortable. It's better to keep them out. So, yes, you were about to ask me about the first volunteer. So, this was Calicut. I had, for all practical purposes, killed the professor. Well, technically he killed himself because of my lack of insight. And I started delving into people's lives a little more, read a little bit. A nurse by name Gilly came from abroad and helped us a lot, taught us a lot. So, when I started doing all this, not only treating the pain but doing a little more, trying to find all their problems. Dr. Suresh Kumar, who is still in Calicut, who directs the WHO collaborating center there, who was doing a postgraduate course with us in Calicut, got interested. So we would sit together and talk. And he brought a friend of his, Mr. Ashok Kumar. Ashok is not a medical person, but you're a kind of person who gets satisfaction from helping others. Ashok would laughingly talk about many medical absurdities, how we concentrate only on disease, how we actually cause more problems sometimes. So, our first initiative, Pain and Palliative Care Society in Calicut, took birth from the discussion between three of us, 2 doctors and 1 human being who had nothing to do with healthcare otherwise. And then we decided to start that clinic in one corner of the hospital. I was given permission with the condition that I should not ask for any support from the government. So we could not get staff in the beginning. So Ashok and Suresh brought in one volunteer, Meena. Meena is still in Calicut. Meena had time during the daytime because her child had just started kindergarten. So daytime was available. She would come and help. Like welcoming patients, helping them sit down. She had done some informal nursing experience also. She was lonely and she persuaded another friend, Lizzie, also to come. So in the matter of organization, Ashok was one of the 3 founders of that moment. And Meena and Lizzie became the first full-time volunteers. And their presence and some visibility to given to it encouraged more volunteers to come in. Like I could have been in jail if I had continued to keep accounts. But I remember with gratitude Mr. Shekharan Nair, late Shekharan Nair, he died a long time back, who came in and helped us with that. Quiet man, comes in the morning, just sits there and handles the accounts till the work is finished. Quietly goes out. And so many areas of work, many people helping with work with patients. I particularly remember Mr. Balan Pillai, who put together a small library there to help patients and families. Anybody could borrow a book to alleviate the boredom in hospitals. So that was the beginning. And then volunteers themselves from other places initiated palliative care activity. I remember the 2nd and 3rd link centers welfare, Manjeri and Perindalmanna, were initiated by doctors, but thereafter it was ordinary, compassionate human beings who took the initiative.
It is very easy to get inspired by movies and think I'll create a change in the world and start an NGO or something. But when I volunteered early, I understood volunteering is to conduct something, simple things needs to be taken care of. Who maintains the accounts, who maintains the sheets, cleaning the toilets, cleaning, small things. And a lot of people, when they come together, something very beautiful can happen. In that context, could you talk about Miss Gilly Burns, the British nurse? Because throughout the book, you talk about how you were always like, am I doing the right thing? And then Miss Gilly Burns came and you attended her class and your UK sojourn. So if you could cover that part of your life.
Gilly, her name is spelled as Gilly. Gilly Byrne. Byrne is the second name. Gilly Byrne is a British nurse. She got interested in palliative care and she worked as a palliative care nurse. Before that, she did many things. She was an actor. For some time, she was a barmaid. She has done everything. Then she became a nurse. She first visited India as a tourist, fell in love with India, and she found all the suffering. Traveled through the country, preaching palliative care, talking about palliative care. So when I was doing this work in Calicut, without studying properly, there was no opportunity to study. She visited us and worked with us, saw how we kept registers, procedures, etc. and asked me, would you like to come for a course in Oxford? I was one of the 6 that she recruited that year. Subsequent years, she did more. Previous year, she had done a few. So that was my formal education. Thereafter, she continued to raise money in the UK and twice a year come back to India to spend it all. When we started with a capital of 1,500 rupees, 6 of the trustees had taken 250 rupees each. We did not have very deep pockets. And then Gilly came and gave us the first donation of 1 lakh rupees. So she obviously believed in what we were doing. and both intellectually in terms of palliative care and materially she supported us. She still visits once in a way, goes around the country, talks about palliative care. She, being an actress, she can be a great performer on stage. She moves people. So Gilly continues to be a dear friend.
And Doctor, in your UK hospital visits when you went for that course, I distinctly remember the hospice over there and one lady who was going through her fourth divorce, and one of the reasons she said is, my last husband was too right. And before also, while going through the podcast, you said earlier we had a lot of caregivers for someone who is not well in the family. There are 10 people. But are we now going to that state in UK where everything is there in the call of a button in Western countries, but there is no family or any loved one? So are we also going there?
One word answer, yes. As families get more nuclear, the inevitable change happens. And today, the elders, perhaps you don't know how they live. Though I came from a village, Mottakat, near Trivandrum, till I started doing home visits, I did not know how people live when they have illnesses. I did not know how they die. It's horrible. If, as we progress, become more and more civilized, we are becoming a culture that respects youth and power and desert the dying. Well, in Western countries, when somebody became old and had health issues, when this happened, they built an alternative facility, nursing homes. Initially they were very bad, but now things have improved, generally in European countries at least, and also in USA, I suppose. We have done nothing. We have also grown nuclear. Children, the world is huge, children fly away. Elders are left alone. So what happens to them eventually? Okay, one looks after the other, and eventually one of them die. As of 2015, according to India population study, there were more than 1.7 lakhs living in single-member households. That does not include people living with a home nurse. Just totally alone. So what happens when they become ill? Sometimes you read in the paper, a stench came from a home and people went there and find a dead body that is rotten. How did they die in those few days? How did they live? We have seen some of them. People covered in filth, their own filth, lying there and crying till eventually death comes to rescue them. So this is happening, and the solution is only more participation of the community. It doesn't happen because people don't care. There are caring people around, but you need a catalyst to get them together, to make those volunteers do something that gives meaning to them and that is useful for them. Well, in the Western countries, in those nursing homes or hospices, very often their physical needs are taken care of, but the loneliness and also emotional issues and etc., I suppose. But loneliness is a growing disease, and I can tell you it's one of the worst maladies possible, abandonment and loneliness. And we are not doing much about it. Except in Kerala, the volunteers may go once in a way. And every Thursday, this person will be sitting there all the time, waiting for somebody, some human being to speak to. So, in the West, that loneliness is growing, and we are going in the same direction and causing even more suffering. So, participation of the community is essential, because we are a low middle income country. We cannot, so far, we haven't produced all those nursing homes. I imagine a day when every panchayat has to have a home like that. Can be done if you prioritize them. If you pretend that those elders lying there and rotting do not exist, it's easy to go on with our lives. But palliative care movement has shown the way. We have done only a little bit so far. I am sure, I hope that the coming generations will improve that. And I hope Westerners also will see them with the usefulness of participation of the community. Okay, in this nursing home there are elders living alone, looking at this. In the cottages outside there are others sitting alone. If only people could get together, and compassionate people earn satisfaction out of volunteering, the world could change.
Now, doctor, thanks to your efforts, the essential pain relief drugs, yours and many of volunteers' efforts, pain relief drugs are comparatively easily available. But I'm sure there was a time during the NDPS Act when you had to struggle a lot. So could you share with me and the audience what was the situation then, and so that they get a context of what it is. Now they might be getting something easily, but what it took. When we understand the context of something, we tend to value and cherish that even more. So could you share that?
So it was not only my efforts, it was efforts of a lot of people. So in India, the Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act of 1985, which is globally recognized to be one of the most draconian laws in the whole world, the whole of the democratic world.
Could you tell what is that act, if you have any idea? What does it do?
So they have listed these control medicines which have the potential for addiction, like morphine. If you are caught with some morphine in your pocket, if that is more than, I can't exactly remember, 25 grams or something, and if they arrest you, this is the only law where the responsibility to prove yourself innocent falls on you. So if somebody, some misguided official wants to trouble someone seriously, enmity, even depositing that thing in the pocket, or say if it's a hospital, if the accounts show that you are holding so much more than what is shown in the stock register, you are culpable. And not only would they take you, they will take all the records with them. So you can't prove your innocence. Till you prove your innocence, you are inside. And you don't have the ways to prove your innocence. This is a catch-22 situation with NDPS Act. That's why it's called the most draconian law in the whole democratic world. Well, leave alone that part of it. The process of licensing was very complicated. Oh God, I know, because in the 1990s I went through that process. Though I worked within a government hospital, it was very hard. So that law had to change. Changing a law in India is not easy. I don't know about now, but at that time when I tried in the 1990s and 2020 and the early part of this century, I found that at every session of the parliament, somewhere between 300 to 400 items of legislation would be tabled to be handled by that session of the parliament. And especially when there is a lot of political strife, the opposition will keep trying to block the action of the government. So they make some fuss, and then the parliament is adjourned. Lok Sabha is adjourned. And there was, at that time, I found that out of the 300 to 400, only 10 to 12 ever get passed. So changing the law was not easy. But Mr. David Joranson and colleagues from the WHO Collaborating Center at Madison, Wisconsin in USA used to do this work around the globe. And they helped us a lot. They taught us how to do things. Then a lawyer by name Tripti Tandon in Delhi, because free service, Supreme Court lawyer, she did a lot of studying and hand-holding for us. And we went to a lot of people, met ministers, members of parliament, political figures. Well, it took us 19 years of efforts. And finally, in 2014, the law was, the Amendment Act has passed. The amendment has not solved all the problems, but it's easier now than then. Unfortunately, the central law has to be implemented by state drug controllers. And in many states, that huge gap lies there. And Kerala has been very good. Even before that, when Kerala could make its own rules, it had amended its rules. And even now, availability is best in Kerala than elsewhere in the country. And there are some states where it has not made a change at all.
Why is it in Kerala that is there because of the groundwork and so many people involved in it?
I think because the common people were involved. And the initiative was by some bureaucrats at that time. Health secretary, IAS officers like that. But later, as things progressed, even in the beginning, public support meant a lot. If I was a doctor going and asking for this, who would listen to me? But after our initial work in Calicut, the media were so supportive. Several newspaper articles, several television shows, and people were all praised for the community activity and the fact that we would reach people in their homes. That was something new. Otherwise, people would have to come to the hospital. But we reached people, the most needy, in their homes. All this became popular. And when it's popular in a democratic country, it's easier to get things done.
Okay, Doctor, we are almost at the end of this episode. I would like to ask regarding oral morphine as to what it is. But before that, there is this general thing to think about pharmaceutical companies as some evil people who want to take profit. Even when I used to take psychiatric medications when I was a kid, and later when I came out of it, I went into a lot of it and I understood there's a lot of profit and so many things that are involved in medicine and all. In that context, could you talk about Dr. Yusuf Hameed, the head of Cipla, who made a lot of things happen for a lot of people around the world, and why we all should be indebted to him?
Yes, the pharmaceutical industry globally is known to be the second most powerful industry, second only to arms industry. And they hold a lot of muscle. Mr. Yusuf Hameed, Dr. Yusuf Hameed of Cipla, he has changed the world. At a time when the patent rights prevented HIV medicines from reaching Africa, He made low-cost HIV medicines and shipped them to and sold them to Africa. You can't imagine what the situation in Africa was. There were countries where 40% of the population was HIV positive at one time. And the difference this made is enormous. And it's easy to think of this as an African problem, but it is not. The country's borders are thinner now. It would have been the world being affected. So, but he withstood all the negative pressure and made it available. And thanks to Gilly, who talked to Mr. Yusuf Hameed, he became interested. And at that time, he started selling morphine tablets at no profit. That is apart from the 10% administrative cost or something, it was sold at zero profit. So that was a tremendous beginning. Mr. Yusuf Hameed continues to lives between UK and India, and all of us need to be grateful to him. But when you talk about that, I must also acknowledge that thanks to the then drug controller, who contacted Lisi Hospital Pharmaceuticals in Kochi, from that time they also make low-cost morphine and continue to sell low-cost morphine at a very narrow profit, which means so much of relief from the pain burden in Kerala also.
Could you tell what this oral morphine is and why that changed? Why do we need this oral morphine?
So, you heard about opium. Poppy is the plant that is grown legally under license in UP, MP and Rajasthan. The opium extracted from all the poppy has to be sold to the government opium and alcohol factory legally, and they make opium from it. They export most of it to Western countries for pain relief and make enough morphine from it for use within the country. Now, manufacturers like Cipla or Lisi Hospital Pharmaceuticals buy it from the government factory. Now, that factory is being gradually, some privatization is coming in, but they buy the powder, make tablets and sell it. And it has to be all accounted for. And they can sell it only to either in the older days with the appropriate license or now with that certification of recognized medical institution from the drug controller. Now, roughly 2/3 of all cancer pains and many other pains cannot be effectively treated without medicines of the class of morphine. No other medicine has been invented which can be suitable for that purpose. There are artificial medicines, but they are of the same class. So without that, intense pain in many diseases like cancer cannot be treated. I am underlying that word, cannot be treated with any other means. So we cannot do without it now. Unless tomorrow science brings in something else, we are dependent on them. They all carry the risk of addiction if inappropriately used. The way we use oral morphine, the chance of addiction is next to zero. I won't say zero, I would say next to zero. But it can be abused, especially as injectables. And then you can turn somebody into an addict, which is why all the controls and restrictions are coming. But about the controls, if you go out of home, you put in a lock and lock your home, right? Turn the key, keep the key in the pocket or in your purse. You don't put in 5 different locks and lock all of them. And even if you do that, you don't give the keys to 5 different people. How will you get back home? This is what the NDPS Act did. So many agencies were involved in the control, and they wouldn't get together to make it available. So the new law, amendment in 2014, is a single window system, one lock, one key.
Basically, this oral morphine is something that people can take to their homes with a doctor's prescription and take accordingly.
Not any doctor's prescription. Only recognized medical institutions can hold it. And the prescription has to be, to have a recognized medical institution, you need to have at least one doctor with training in pain management. And then you can use it.
So the care receiving people, they do not need to come to hospitals whenever they'll be given a schedule to take this. And that is why it makes this...
No, if they go to any hospital, they will not get it.
Okay.
Palliative care centers vitally, and some hospitals take the trouble to do it properly. They can get it they can come to the hospital and get it. But they will have to take it home. They can't live in hospitals for the rest of their lives. So every time they are given a supply of 2 or 3 weeks, supplied for 2 or 3 weeks. And our home visit teams, palliative care home visit teams, carry it with them and dispense it in the home.
What I understood is from your book, before this oral morphine was available, people were not willing to leave the hospitals. They would stay there and...
That was because of a cure paradox. In the hospital, injection morphine is available, oral is not. So if they stay in hospitals, they can get the repeated injections and get pain relief. So it was common sense, they needed oral morphine. They needed it for use at home.
Okay, doctor. So that is the end of our this episode, doctor. Thank you for giving us your valuable time, and I forgot to show the book in the front. So this is Doctor's Walk with the Very book. This is available in Malayalam also.
The Malayalam is published by DC Books. It's called Sneham Sandhanam.
So I hope all of you get a copy of this, because whatever we talk in this podcast, it is done in a more reading a book. I think we are able to express ourselves more, and the way I see the events in it is, our imagination is different. So I could imagine you going through this, walking in your shoes and going through each of it. So
thank you, Vaisakh. Thank you for being very human. Thank you for not being afraid to show your emotions, your involvement in the whole thing emotionally. That was very valuable. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.